I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. First thing on the agenda, approve the agenda.
Oh, second.
Moved by Lee, second by Gage, to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This time we'll have the opportunity for public comment. Anybody here to have anything to address with commission with? Not hearing anything, we will move on. Next on the agenda, we have Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent. Recommendations on awarding bids on overlay project County Road 5, gravel and rental equipment. Dirk, you have the floor.
Thank you. First thing would be the Road 5 bid tab, which I just handed to you. It all checked out and was good, and I would recommend that we award it to liens, $3,098,937.22.
Entertain a motion to approve lien for the County Road 5 overlay. I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Dennert, second by Weiss, to approve the County Road liens to have the project on County Road 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a quick comment on that. The reason I deferred it wasn't really, IMEG had checked it the other day and everything was cool, but I did want to at least do a quick evaluation after I had what our prices were for us to do it, and just make sure that, there wasn't something in there that was way cheaper for us to do, and I think we could probably do it close to the same cost, but the length of time it's gonna take us to do it will eat up a little bit too much of the construction season, so that's
The other things we would not get done.
Exactly. And the other thing is, maybe if this were closer to town, it would be something for us that we could crank it out a little fast, but with 30-mile haul, which isn't hard to do, it's kinda time consuming, so. I got a bid tab. Anybody else want a bid tab for that? So you don't call me later, Scott, and ask me what it was? Okay.
Yeah, we'll call you later.
Yeah, I know. Okay, next thing I got, rental equipment. It's all in that bid tab. Again, just a side note, every year I say I'm gonna maybe try to come up with a little more streamlined way of doing this, but, for right now, we're just kinda doing it the way we've had. They're all compiled in here, and then we would award them. I'd like to award them based on their availability and cost at the time. Some of this stuff never gets used, maybe a third of it gets used, basically, in each year. It just kinda depends what we're doing. One other motivator in bringing this back, so we didn't bid it last year, is the new culvert program. So if it gets to where we're overloaded and we're doing the culvert program with the townships, then boom, we already got the bids in place to hire contractors to do it.
So you know what the inventory is and what the rate's gonna be.
Exactly. It's all in here. So I would move that, I would not move, I would recommend.
Go ahead, take a shot.
I know, I think you want this chair, well, I do not. Yeah, the same problems at about a quarter of the pay, forget it.
I'd entertain a motion to accept the rental bids on availability.
We'll move.
Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Gage. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.
Raise my rates.
Do we have gravel on here too?
Yes.
We didn't award that last week, huh?
No?
Okay, I didn't bring the bid tab with me.
It got sent out.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I would recommend that we award all the gravel based on, availability and location. 2 bids came in late. I got no problem with their, we're just not even gonna look at them. They came in after the fact. We don't know, it's too bad. So throw those out, but I recommend that we award everybody else that bid on time based on availability and location.
Entertain a motion to accept gravel bids, based on availability and location.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Dennert, to approve the gravel bids based on location and availability. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That was simple.
Yeah, really easy.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, I know. It's just the end of February, Doug. Let's not get too optimistic there.
That's right.
No, if anybody got any other questions or anything you wonder about?
Load limits.
Oh, yeah, load limits, we already kind of passed that, so
Yep.
we're, just a reminder, they'll
Just
start
reiterating
going on,
for
yep, they'll start going on Friday morning, and you're okay until the sign goes up, but, so Friday morning, that's, and that's sort of the trade-off, because we decided what the day was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, you know, and I'm not very warm to moving the 3rd, since we already picked it for the sake of
Okay.
giving people some warning, so,
So just for clarification, March 3rd,
Yes.
2023, load limits will go on?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And there's no changes, just to let you know, over the last couple of years, when we got the bridge at Hall Pit Bridge fixed, then we made a couple changes to the load limits. There's no changes this year, so.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Dirk.
Thanks.
You guys have a beautiful day.
Thanks. You too.
Next on the agenda, we have Patricia Kendall, Dakota Prairie Museum Director, annual report.
Hey,
Good morning,
good morning.
Patricia.
Good morning. I apologize for getting this to you not prior, but I just printed it this morning. So, but I did promise to have it ready in February. And today's February 28th, so I got it. done.
Work best under pressure, don't you?
Yes, actually. And you know, most of our deadlines are self-imposed, and that's what we work on with. So, what I'd like to tell you about highlights from 22. I hate to sound stereotypical and formulaic, but it was a great year. We had a great year, and I almost want to knock on wood too, because I am very, very pleased with how things have gone. Which obviously I couldn't do without the support of, well, the county, the commission, or my foundation. That really is. I'm not doing it by myself. Definitely all of that and my staff. So what we did in 22 is we finished updating the Lamont Gallery, which is our biggest exhibit space. Increased it to 900 square feet. We're really, really pleased with how it turned out. You know, we raised the ceiling, we put in a sound system, new lighting, new picture hanging system, increased the square footage. Then we also, for remodeling, we also did the gift shop. We moved some things around there. We redid the entry ramp, updated it. We've had lots of compliments of people coming in. As you know, we have the original registration desk from the Alexander Mitchell Public Library, from the original Carnegie Library. We call it the Carnegie desk. And some people say, oh, when did you get this? Well, we got it 6 years ago, but you couldn't see it before, so now it's kind of highlighted. And also we increased daily attendance. As you can see on our attendance page there, we're at 53.3 is our average daily attendance. And we've always been around 50, a little before, a little below, a little above, but now we're well above 50. And that is from every day that we're open, that we have, you know, a holiday open house and we have 800 people, or there's a blizzard and we have 0 people, so that's where your average comes in. During the pandemic, we did change our open hours and our days open. So we're actually open fewer days of the week, but more hours, because we increased our hours on Saturday. I'd say our Saturday attendance, which last Saturday was 188 people, I'd say almost half of them came before 1 o'clock. So between 11 and 1 is when we get half of our attendance. And before, we only opened at 1 on Saturday, so we were missing all those people. So we feel like we've adjusted to capture that attendance, so we're very pleased about that. And then, of course, our school programs were more in 22. I think I reported to you that earlier last year, that all the schools that had not gone on field trips for 2 years, they all went on field trips last year. And they all came to the museum. So we had a 25% increase. We had 1,200 kids come through in about a 3.5-week period. And either they took a tour, or they did the afternoon in the past, where they did candles and churned butter. And then we actually have had the most classroom visits this past year as well. I think we're up to 407 classroom visits. 400 was our record before, and that was in the before time, before the pandemic. So we are reaching even more classrooms and more students. So we're we're very pleased with that as well. So in '22, we also continued the building maintenance. As you can see, I have no awnings on right now, but those are being replaced and the frames are being repaired. I'm hoping if it would stop snowing, you know, for a week or so, that we could get our awnings back up, but that'll probably be hopefully by the end of March now. And that's funded by, I had some insurance on that, and then I'm raising funds, and then my foundation is helping pay for those. So the county isn't paying for the awnings at all. And then with Judy in maintenance, with her help, we have that new Reno-Dry system. It's installed. We went through that process at the end of last year, and then and it was recommended to us by our building assessors and our collection assessors. And so now we have 2 of the units installed in our building, one in the basement and one on first floor, because we have 28,000 square feet. And so it's going to take up to 3 years to completely get the humidity out of the basement to the acceptable level. And then it's just going to maintain that in perpetuity. So apparently these devices just continue on their own. There's no electrical, there's no power coming to them, they just have their own internal system.
Interesting.
Which was complicated, but Judy said okay, so we did it. So, but I also had our architect
Pretty
review
reasonable
the
cost,
company.
too.
$17,000.
Yeah.
And that was maintenance.
Right.
So I was very grateful to Judy for getting that project going. So now what we need to do, so in our basement, and I'll take anybody down there if you want to come and take a look. What happens with the humidity coming through and the moisture, what it does is that it leaves us salt on the walls, a lot of salt. And so what we need to do is we need to brush all that salt off and carry it out of the basement so that it can dry out even quicker. Because then the salt, once it forms a barrier, and then the moisture is trapped, and all of that leads to continued problems. But we have Day of Champions coming up in April. We have the student athletes coming, and they will be helping us clean up our basement. Yeah. We
Do
usually...
you get to see the monitoring of those humidity at all? Is there any way that do you get to visually see what is dropping, or is that something who monitors that, or who's in charge of seeing what is going on there?
So we will be able to tell because we have dehumidifiers in the basement, and as soon as it gets to that season where there's a lot of humidity in the air, we are emptying 3 or 4 of them once a day from the basement. And we were told that we should see those decrease, so we'll be able to see how much moisture our dehumidifiers are pulling. And also we have the gauges in the basement in several different places, and so we should be able to see the humidity level dropping. You want to be, for collections, between 45 and 55% humidity, and some of our spaces are like in the 60s and 70s. So we'll be able to monitor that and see it drop, and I'm hoping by this summer, maybe by the end of the summer, we'll be able to tell the difference. It's a big building, too. And plus, you know, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, everything was built on a slough, so our water table, and if you want to know, when they first came in 1880, 1881, the slough was on the 100 block of Main Street here. That's where it was. That's what they built on top of, and that's where we are, so.
Does the basement have sump pumps over there?
We have no sump pumps,
Okay,
but we have drain tiles. After the 2007 flood, we had like 3 feet of water in the basement. We installed the drain tiles and all of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses, and it's a 132-year-old building. It needs attention, but it also needs continuing attention. You can't just do one thing and it takes care of something. You gotta continually continued building maintenance. All right, and then new in '22, our foundation, our Dakota Grade Museum Foundation, established a scholarship for Brown County students, and so this will be the first year that we will be awarding scholarships to Brown County students who choose a South Dakota school to attend for college, or technical, to a 2 or 4 year accredited South Dakota school. So I've already received 10 applications for 8 scholarships, so our scholarships committee will have a job in front of them to choose. But we established that, it's an endowment, our foundation established that in '22, so now we're going to implement it. So, and then moving forward too, in '23, so we're gonna update the children's exhibit. We're gonna do a very similar renovation as we did in the Lamont. We're gonna take out some of the walls that are in there, which we've already had the structural engineer come in and give his blessing, and Judy. So we're gonna make it country school. So you're gonna have a one-room schoolhouse, but you have to get ready at home, because you have to do your chores. So we're gonna do a little fundraising, because my curator would like a milking cow. Have you been to the Children's Museum in Brookings? And there's a big cow that
I've been to the one in Pier.
Yeah.
They have the there too.
Yep, and it's great because it's hands-on. So you gotta do your chores at home before you go to school. The milking cow costs between $7,000 and $8,000. So, and there's two sizes. There's the big one and there's the little one, and I think we'll get the little cow. So, and then we'll update the railroad exhibit. I think I've talked about it before, it's a very small footprint for our little train to go around, so we want to extend that and more than double the size of that. And then, of course, Thomas and Friends are coming this summer, so it's going to be all trains all day, all summer. So, I mean, it already is for us, but it will be again. And then, so the future, what does the future hold for us? You know, we want to continue to make all these updates to the building and to our programs, and make sure our attendance continues to go up, fill those needs in our community. But as you know, I may have mentioned this to some of you, and certainly Dwayne knows more about it, but eventually I would like to build an off-site collection storage facility, but also make it multi-purpose. I want to build a barn at Centennial Village, because that's county property, so I can have the land, but then I'd have to fundraise to build it. So it would be collection storage, but it would be a visitor center for Centennial Village. It would have a classroom, a kitchenette, restrooms, an office, and then outdoor space where you'd have a little stage and a gazebo. I'd like to have a prairie garden out there with natural prairie grasses, and then also like, you know, what the settlers would have planted, you know, when they came. If you remember, Pa Ingalls, you know, had a little saying when he planted, you know, the corn, you know, one for the wind, one for the birds, and one for us, I believe is what it was. So, and really incorporate that, so it's a little more hands-on. Right now, the kids, when they're out there, we use the saloon for our camps when we go inside, which, you know, has been updated very nicely for a saloon, but we'd like to get the kids into a little bit more educational space and something that we've curated. And that is what we want to do in the future. Give me 3 to 5 years. See what I can get done. Any questions?
Your volunteer hours, are they getting about the same, or are they, I see there's 2,057 total volunteer hours.
Yes.
Is that pretty level to what it's been in the past, or?
Yep, it has rebounded, and that's pretty normal for us to have over 2,000. So if you think about it, 2,080 hours is a full-time position. So historically, we've had volunteers fill a full-time position, is what they did. But I've got, you know, 60, 70 volunteers who contribute to that. The ones that we see the most are the ones at the front desk, but we have ones that go up to our collections department and catalog books and catalog blueprints. They do that, and then when we have events, we have a lot of volunteers come and help us and contribute. So some people just do one thing during the year, and then some come and do, you know, regular work for us. Our average age of our volunteer, 68 probably. But we have our junior docents, and they have given us, you know, thousands of hours. They're in the junior docent program at Roncalli is in its 30th year this year, and we have returning junior docents as adults who come back to the museum, and they have a strong connection to us and to what they learned when they were with us.
Very good.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Patricia,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
You'll do
Keep
a
up the good
phenomenal-
work.
Yeah, you'll do a phenomenal job too with special events and holidays and things like that, both promoting it and organizing it, and have
Yeah.
great interactive activities for kids especially.
Thank you. I only hope that every employee in the county enjoys their job as much as we do. at the museum.
That's a stretch.
I'm sorry.
It's true. We're living right there.
We love what we do, and thank you for supporting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have an extra report.
Yes, absolutely. You don't, you can call me Scott and ask me anything.
Thanks.
Moving on, we have the consent calendar.
Approval of the general meeting minutes of February 21st, 2023.
Move. Second. Moved by Gabe, second by Weiss, to approve the general meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move. Second. Moved by Dennett, second by Weiss, to approve claims and payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second. Moved by Gabe, second by Dennett, to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution to change the name of Brown County 12W.2.
Okay, we have a resolution to change name of Brown County 12 to W2. I think there's some discussion to be had on that, maybe?
Briefly,
Okay.
if you don't mind. I asked you to wait a week, and I appreciate that. I did bring Kent over here to give you a little bit of more background of why we asked for that extra week for the emergency services and such. If you have a moment, he can give you a little bit more background, if that's okay.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Yep.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry.
Morning.
So, I guess the piece for us as far as the addressing goes, we need to be as clear and precise, because, you know, our first responders locally in town, they all have mobile data terminals in their vehicles, so they can literally look on the map and see the pin where it is. Our rural folks don't. I mean, they are literally going off the street signs. I mean, that's in memory, essentially, is how they're finding these places. So that's the piece for us that we have to make sure, you know, on Sarah and I's side, you know, all we need to do is verify, you know, so however it's done in the planning and zoning GIS, fine and dandy for us, but it's the people on the other end that don't have that technology to see it, is kind of why, you know, why we wanted to kind of chat about that a little bit, just to make sure you guys understand why we're saying that, because, you know, it's all off of their memory and just following street signs to get to that 5-digit number, you know, essentially to find that building or structure or field, where it would happen to be. So, and I know that's been kind of a challenge in certain areas sometimes, and, you know, Scott and I visited about the 12W, you know, what do you address it, you know, that at? That's such a goofy road, the way that comes off the bypass to get over to what's that, 132nd, is that right? 133rd. You know, and it's how do you address that?
Technically, it's no longer a state highway.
Right. So I don't know how you handle that. That's you know, I don't know. Yeah. So.
But it needs to be consistent.
Right. But that's the key point. It's just like our rural guys. They're not as technology advanced as the rest of our crews are. So they have to go off of memory and what the street signs are telling them to go. And so I guess that's the key factor when we make these decisions is, you know, is for those guys, you know, how do we get people there as fast and as safely as we can? So.
And just so you know, we don't have a problem with it. We just wanted a little extra time to verify it all with all the agencies and make sure that we were all on the same sheet of music before we asked you to let it go through. So.
Mike? So, I guess I met with Kent and Sarah and Scott Mites also yesterday on that. And I think one of the, I don't know if the 133rd is as much the problem to me, gathering what I'm talking, as the 4-digit number that's in front of it. So looking at the sheet that we got last time was, we were at like, so if I told you to drive to 2380 133rd Street, how many in the room can actually drive to that? Well, you have no frame of reference, right? I mean, there is none. But if you were to make that a 5-digit like the rest of the county, you could drive to it because it's based on a grid system. I mean, it's a lot easier to get. So I guess for me, just throwing out my thoughts is I think that we need, right now, and I know why Scott Bader has the 4-digit, because there is a box as of right now around it that does a 4-digit number. And I don't know how far that is out, Scott, from the city limits, but I think, and I don't know what we do with existing, and I'm not really discussing that right at the moment, what we do with our existing addresses, but I think we need to move that down to, shrink that to the city, anything outside of the city limits, when we address, I think needs to have the same 911 system that we have now, where it has a 5-digit number, which is your street or address, you know, with the, how far it is along that mile, and then the street that is corresponding with your, in this case, 133rd or, you know, 386th Avenue or whatever it is. I mean, that would be, and that, talking to them, it sounded like if we do that 5-digit system, that's an easier one for everybody to find, at least in the county. Now, I know that it does affect a lot of people that are inside that red square, or this one yellow, that addresses are different, and I don't know how to move forward on that, but at least when you're talking about this one out here, that is, there's one person on it now, I know they might develop and everything, but at least if we started with that, and if it gets annexed in, if they're all annexed, they're all voluntary annexations, when people annex in, they're voluntarily knowing that they're gonna change their address then at that time to a city address, whatever the city planning and zoning comes up with for their address. But I think for the county and for dispatch, I thought it'd be easier maybe, unless anybody has a problem with going with a 5-digit number on that and shrinking that down to just the city limits.
I do know that, when, you know, I'm on Aberdeen Rural, that every time we get these goofy numbers, these little short numbers, I gotta call in the dispatch and ask them what the old 911 address is, because, I mean, to us that don't do it all the time, we got no rhyme or reason where that address is to, you know, where another one, because I can't differentiate, you know, between east and west. Now, if they said west, it'd be a different story, but they don't do that, and,
Yep.
and so your reference points for the 3 miles around Aberdeen are just, I call in, and they give it to me, you know, that's not what we're probably supposed to do, but when
Well, you don't have much choice, and
No.
that's just it, and that's not something
Yes.
that's gonna go away, is the transition between a municipal addressing scheme and a rural addressing scheme, which are not directly compatible
Mm-mm.
when it comes to a numbering system, and trying to provide some consistency, because the borders of any city are not a nice, neat box, and they change, and trying to find some consistency when you do that, and then different folks have different frustrations. You know, we've had that before when we've done rural addressing, or we've made changes on that, somebody's invested considerable amount of money in, you know, a really nice, beautiful piece of aesthetic marker for their property, and oh, by the way, this number's no longer valid, besides, you know, all the rest of the issues. So it's not right or wrong either way, and then you try and find some consistency like you're doing with this, and then all of a sudden you start doing exceptions to it, and then you're kind of all over the board again too. So, I mean, there's no quick, easy answer to how you want to do some of these things.
Anybody else have anything to add?
Well, I'd like to add that, back in the year 99 or 2000, that's when this rectangle was agreed upon by the city, the county, and emergency responders, and when I came to work here in 2013, all I've ever heard is problems. It just seems like, you know, everything with them addresses, there's a problem between city limits and this rectangle line. So I'm not sure what all the reasoning was. I wasn't, I worked at the city at the time, but I wasn't involved in the addressing part. But it just seems like, there's always complaints about that and troubles finding them and things like that.
A lot of times we look for the smoke plume on the way to the station. That's truly it.
But is there any clear-cut method to make it better? I mean, I think it goes back to what Mike said, it's just, how do you change that? Because then if you start changing that, then you're going to have to update Spillman, because all the addresses that are in there, it's not just a touch of one button and it's fixed. I mean, it's kind of complicated between when you got a city entity and a county entity, and then you keep annexing these in. What do you do with it? I mean, I don't know what anybody else does with it. I mean, do they fight the same thing?
I'd be hard pressed to say they don't. I mean, it has to be that way you know, and some of the other entities like that as well. It, you know, that city boundary moves all the time depending on what they're annexing in and out.
Right,
I don't know.
if you're gonna make it an automatic, well, the address is gonna be different if you get annexed, you know, that's a little bit unheard of too, so.
There's probably less than a half a dozen annually that are annexed. I'm gonna see 2 or 3, so it's not like there's 25 at a time.
I did call the city about their opinion about it changing, and they didn't have any issue theirs, and they didn't believe that particular, what we would call 133rd now, or old Highway 12, that they would change that anytime soon. The offshoots, they would change, if there were roads created, but not that one.
It was just my opinion. I'm working on a plat for the farmland and the one house that's addressed off of this section, but how many people realize 133rd Street stops at Foot Creek? I mean, that's just the dumbest place to stop the name of the road, in my opinion. It's been like that for a lot of years, and why not just continue it to the bypass and you have 133rd Street and 12W? We're not changing 12W, it'll still be 12W. It's kind of misworded there, but 133rd Street is what would be used for addressing.
And that's why that little dogleg was put in there in the first place, in anticipation of a frontage road being extended from there to 8th Avenue at some point in time with development, because the state's not gonna give you additional access points up and down that stretch. And so to be able to develop that land for whatever purpose, whether it's like commercial or industrial or residential, you're gonna need some access. So that's why, you know, I was involved at the time to specifically put that 90 in there, so you could make a decent intersection if and when you get to that point that you're.
Mr. Chairman?
Scotty?
Yeah, Scott. Go ahead,
Hey,
Scott.
this is Scott over at the EM office. Just a little clarification, you know, when the bypass used to be, that would go from Highway 12 to 133rd, you know, if you look at the map, that's a straight line. So the 12W that is currently 12W and not 133rd, that is not 133rd Street. So that was my worry was it's going to cause some confusion because it's not. And then we're going to have a section of that road going north and south that would be against that also. And you know, I think we understand that this isn't a simple fix, but from the emergency response side, we've got to do something to try to keep these as common as we can. So that we keep the confusion down. We've got so many half-mile lines that have oddball names and stuff. We have maps about maps. So our request isn't to reinvent the wheel here or anything like that, but just how do we go about making sure that we're consistent and it's not creating other issues for our responders, if that makes sense.
I think the issue, Scott, is what's the fix?
I don't know, and like we told Commissioner Gage we don't know what that answer is. I mean, we'd love to go back to the 5-digit county addresses all the way up to the city limits. That's not an easy fix, though. That's a lot of effort and time on everybody's part. But let's not keep going down that path. Let's start putting together a plan to fix this.
So what do you wanna do?
Well, personally, I mean, you can look at that thing as just like a correction curve in it, I guess. Like you would on 281 or 10 or something like that. I'd like to see at the bare minimum, any new addresses that come in that are in the county be at least a 5-digit number in there. So at least they're found with a 5-digit and a corresponding street address that corresponds with the, I know that's
Proposed, I don't know,
but, I mean, that's probably not gonna be a county deal though.
no.
That's what I mean, so then the city's gonna end up be the ones that'll be addressing all of that.
Expect it's gonna connect here,
Yeah, and then that would shrink our road back down,
if and when.
and I don't know, that would, I mean, I know that changing every one of them outside of the city limits is a big undertaking, I know that is, but, I mean, my personal opinion, and that was even before our meeting, is the 5-digit number grid system is by far the best system they came up with so far on that, as far as finding something, so I think anybody can kind of find something. Now, whether you can drive there if the roads are open or not, that's a whole other thing, but at least you can find it on a map. So, I mean, when the guys, and I know that, like, more your in-town stuff that have the systems in there, it's a little easier, but for the guys out on the rural thing, they're going by the, I mean, if they're not old enough to know who used to live there 50 years ago, and they're going off of that, they're going off of street signs and where they're at, and then instead of having to follow their phone, they can look up and see some signs and know they need to get to this intersection, and they're so far west or east of that, or whatever, but.
How much of a job would it be to find out how many 4-digit counties need to be changed to a 5-digit? Is it a lot?
Yeah, that's
So
a can of worms.
That's where you're getting into, where it's been going on so long that it's basically kinda out of control, so how do you, now if you start changing it to a 5-digit, and you got these 4-digits in the county, doesn't that just add more confusion? I mean, I don't know where you're gonna go with this, I mean.
Well, the residents themselves, some of them got changed 2 and even 3 times when we did the rural addressing, and, from a practical standpoint, from their side of things too, you've got everything under the sun that's got an address for mail or for just your location and everything, and to try to go through and change all of that is not an easy task for citizens.
Everyone
Difficult.
inside that rectangle, from city limits to the rectangle, change their addresses at least 3 different times, and sometimes for the city and the county to try to get the addressing situated at the beginning, and,
Don't wanna do that again.
the GIS department had recommended one time to change the city road names, Main Street, Dakota Street and all that, and extend it out to that line. But that's a hypothetical line, people don't know where that line's at, it'll just make it just as confusing as it is now, in my opinion. That line is just hypothetical, it's not,
Right or wrong, it's settled in.
yeah. The city limit line, I mean, people pretty much know their backyard is city limits. That's pretty definitive, but.
You guys got a consensus? What do you wanna do? There's no wrong answer or no right answer.
So that brings to the conclusion, I guess, until somebody has a good idea or a good way to do this, I guess we move forward.
Leave it like it is.
Well, I guess
They are
it's,
opposing to
I
it.
don't know what your choices are. I mean, it sounds like it's confusing if you do it the other way, and it's very time consuming, and you're gonna have a lot of residents that are gonna be jumping up and down if you make the change again. I mean, they're settled in where they're at. I mean, it's just not an easy place to fix it at this point.
Well, at this point, there's just one address there.
Right now,
That's the thing, it's gonna get worse.
it's gonna get changed, now is the time to change it to 133rd.
That would be my argument. I mean, do we continue down, I mean, I think it's agreed upon that a 4-digit number on top of whatever street number on there is not feasible to try to find. And that's more what it is, and I'm not even talking about for these guys. Let's go down to your basic, trying to have the UPS guy find it when you order something online. I mean, it's difficult for them, so I mean, you just start changing the I know it's a mess whatever you do, but do you continue down the same mess, or do you at least try to do something that you can see? This would be a good one to start with, because it affects one person that may or may not be, I mean, they're doing something there because of all the changes. And I mean, Scott's got at least, there's 3 other addresses on here that have to be addressed on that, so I mean, you've got to address all these individual lots that are coming up that'll be, it's nice meeting, so I mean,
The anticipated development that would extend that farther north doesn't have any intention of using either one of them.
that's true, I know.
Yeah.
But if that were to not happen, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or if it happens 10 or 15 years from now.
Yeah.
In the interim, I'm not saying we go around and change everybody's address inside of that 40. I mean, personally, I think that would be, I mean, it'd be a nightmare for the people living here. I'm not gonna discount that. But for first responders to find the address, it would be way simpler for everybody to find, but at least if you started with the new stuff coming in, that you have to address and everything, and start going to that. I know it'd be a jumbled mess, but I can't believe it's gonna be any more jumbled than if we just leave it the way it is, right? I mean, is it gonna be any more difficult? So, I mean,
The people that live in the farm moved to town to a townhouse, the farm's up for sale, all the property's being replatted. It was just my suggestion that now's a good time to extend 133rd Street. Leave it like it is, that's fine with me too.
Yeah, it'd be nice to change all those, but I just don't think the juice could be worth the squeeze. That's, you know, a lot of people that live on like South Highway 281 or Rolling Hills or even up on 130.
so I'm saying if you just take all them out of it, don't even start talking about changing
Just a new
anybody
one.
that's existing, but I mean, this is actually a new bunch of flats and lots. I mean, there is one existing that's shrinking, but I mean, it's one person that is not living there right now. So whoever buys that, if their address changes to a 5-digit and whatever, they're gonna have to do an address change anyways to move there, so.
The history behind that, the Lowell family dedicated the old Sunshine Road that it used to be when there was an old overhead down there and hog farm and stuff. And it was Sunshine Road. Well, when Highway 12W came through and the right-of-way was purchased, there was no more Sunshine Road. And their address was Sunshine Road all these years. So we had to address them as 12W last year. But they still had the address of Sunshine Road for many, many years, and it wasn't even there. So,
So I have a question, Scott. Dave and I were just kind of had a little sidebar conversation, you know, so do all of those, like where rules are on Sunshine Road, is there actually at the original, 911 address for that location still? Is that still in the mapping at all? It's not? Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering if that would be an option either.
and their address is 12W, and we don't address parcels off of highways, we address them off of the 911 streets, and there's no 911 street here.
Okay. Okay.
And to me,
That's not true, because we address off of Highway 12.
They've never been updated by the city. We just ended up getting this addressing in this rectangle from the city within the last year, just several months. The city always took care of it, Scott.
Well, we have the proposed resolution, I guess.
That's one.
I'll make a motion that we change it to 133rd and go with the 5-digit address down to the, on this new, not addition, but whatever, 5-digit address down to the city limits on this one.
So your request then is to change it here
Well,
forward?
Yeah,
To make the
because he's
5-digit?
got a address, and I know that changes what Scott's got to do on the 4-digit to the 5 digits. I know you already have the 4-digit addresses
That's
on there.
inside the rectangle, so it would be the 4-digit number.
But yeah, well, I'm proposing that we just change it to 5-digit numbers even inside from right onto the city limits on this particular road, because I think it ends right at the bypass then anyways, right? On this one?
I don't even know if the bypass is city limits.
Well, it doesn't go into Rolling Hills over there, or the train yard, right?
Yeah, it stops
Is
at
that-
the
yeah.
bypass.
Currently. Well, I mean, they're only gonna come out. We're not
It's just a
gonna-
slew on the, it's a slew on the other side.
Yeah. So it only would affect this piece from Foot Creek to the bypass is where we would start, as a starting point.
And we also, I recommend not putting a directional on there, because that'll make it more confusing. Just make it 133rd Street and just stop at the bypass. If you put a directional on there, the railroad avenue comes out right after the first curve on the north side, so then you'd have a north and a south, or east and a west. It'd be better just not to have a directional.
So your motion is to adopt this, but with an exception for a 5-digit street number for this
Well, no,
stretch
but-
only.
You see, like, this address for this new one for lot is, what, 2380, right, if I'm reading
Right.
that right? So then it would be, well, I don't even know what we're looking at there, you'd be probably 385.90 or something, right? Because I think it's 385 and 386 is what that's between, roughly, some ballpark, I mean, I'm just, don't quote me on that,
No,
but
you're
that's what
right.
we need, but that's, would be roughly like 389.90 or 389.88 for this one, or 385, excuse me. You know what I'm saying, just like your address would be if you moved 3 miles this way out into the
You
county.
guys got heartburn with that, or?
How does that,
You'd be asking these folks, I mean, they're the ones
What's
that have
that?
to go to
I missed
those,
that.
you
So,
know.
I mean, I guess, what I always kind of thought was, yes, we switched to that 4 number, but I'm wondering, and that's what I was talking to Kent about, is their own, keep that first 4 numbers, but can we inject on the back side of the current address, and then in parentheses, however, have, the old 911 address? Personally, my feeling, I don't care what's in the 3 miles, what we care about is that 911 address, because I have no idea, like I said before, what some 4-digit number on 134th is. Is it east or is it west? We don't work with it enough, but if you, gave, 391st, which is, RDO Road, and then you got 134th, which is back behind my place, and we had a fire back there, and I had no clue where it was, and I called dispatch. I said, it's in Joby Acres. I'm like, well, it's not. They said, well, it's on the road back behind it. And, of course, it's dark, you can't see the smoke, but, had we known, some intersection stuff, what we're used to, I think, we'd have been able to find it a whole lot easier. At least we wouldn't have to call in to dispatch, because they're busy enough with stuff going on. I didn't know if there's, we could inject the old 911 address behind what we currently have.
Yeah, everybody else using that information too. Did we have any conversation with the post office
I haven't,
about this?
That's where Madsen maybe would have at some point in time, I don't know, but.
Because that's another consideration as well.
Because if I understand right, this is all about, the emergency side of the stuff. And I guess, like I said, to me at this point, that would make more sense. I just don't know if...
It would probably be less impact for the residents, honestly, they wouldn't.
Well, they wouldn't know anything. We just go in and...
Well, part of the determining factor is you're using a rural street designation. Regardless of where it is, you're gonna use the one, West Highway 12, either one, if you're, it's a dog leg, or, it's a rural street designation for it. It's not like, it's proposed for the extension with it.
So for example, like the old Shopko building, right? If you look at that, if you go on Beacon, that'll say 500 North Highway 281. That's not North Highway 281 anymore.
Mhm.
That's Fifth Avenue, right? So we had a call a few months ago that came in for that, and it pinned south of the number 2 fire station on the bypass.
Mhm.
All right? So, GIS went in and put a fix in the back end of it, so when that address comes in, it pins it to that spot, so we know. So, there's lots of things you can do on the back end of it with addressing to get it to show right, but the other piece is then we need to have that information to go to these guys, so then they know, oh yeah, okay, this is my intersections where I need to be for the 911 addressing piece of it.
Mhm.
Did you contact the city about that?
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
need an address?
Yep, and they didn't want to play ball at that point in time, I don't think, so I think right now that was when they were losing did they lose their GIS or planning and zoning director or something?
GIS guy.
Yeah, so I think he was on his way out at that point in time when we had that issue show up, so I don't know where that's at anymore now. I don't think they still have anybody, but, yeah.
So, we postponed this a week to try to iron it out, and I don't know that we've gained a lot.
Yeah.
I guess, you've got other entities that need to be involved. Before we make a decision, it's something, if we're gonna change this to a 5-digit, I think we gotta look at everything forward to a 5-digit if we're gonna start this down this road. So, is that something we want to decide today, or what do we want to do? I guess that's the question.
Well, I'm 100% fine with the 5-digit. I mean, that, to me, it's the only one that makes sense. I mean, so, I'm sold. Anything new moving forward is a 5-digit number, in my opinion, but that's just me, like one vote.
And what does that affect the sheriff's department, 911, is that
If we go to the 5-digit, it's, you know, we're gonna have to make our changes, but we're gonna have to make changes no matter how this comes about.
You're gonna have to
I
add
don't
all
see an
these.
issue.
You have, there's only one address there now. There's 3 of them gonna be after, well, however long, but after tonight's meeting and it gets through here and everything, there'll be 3 addresses you're gonna have to add anyways, because they're new on there. So,
Where
I
we're
mean-
at now, if we're gonna change it now, it's the time to do it, because then you're really not affecting anybody. City had no problem with it whatsoever. I talked to the planning and zoning over there, they were fine with changing it to 133rd. If we're gonna do it, we just need to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And then, for the future, use this model.
Okay, at the moment, we recognize this as an exception, but it could potentially be used in other places. But yeah, that's the one thing, if we're gonna go to, you know, a county rural addressing street designation, they don't continue in some of those places, so I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion to, go to a 5-digit and make it 133rd Street. Is that my understanding? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Make it happen.
All right.
Thank you.
Next on the consent, we have a lease.
There goes Scott, move.
Thank you. Second.
Motion, I didn't hear that. Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Authorize and approve vice chair to sign the 2022 operational report for air emissions at the landfill.
Moved by Weiss, second by Gage, to approve the vice chair to sign the operation report of the air emissions at landfill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Fair contract.
Move.
Moved by Denner, second by Weiss, to approve the fair contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abatement.
Move. Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Gage, to approve the abatements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Other business, do we have anything else to come before the commission?
It's just a Lake Region meeting.
Okay.
Plan on attending.
That, we have the, Day County is gonna be hosting the Lake Region District, County Commissioners meeting. It'll be, Thursday, March 16th. It'll be at the Day County Courthouse. Registration begin at 11:30, cost of meals $13, lunch will be served at 12. They would like us to respond by March 9th. So just for your information, we'll put something in the packet for next week to
Okay.
see who's interested, so we can kinda get that going. Anything else?
One quick thing, just wanted to make another announcement that we are, the planning and zoning meeting that was scheduled for last week, I'm just gonna reiterate this so everybody knows, was postponed last week. It will be tonight at 7 o'clock downstairs, so, just so everybody's aware, it's been published and everything has been put out, but just one more, announcement so everybody knows.
Okay. Ross, do you have anything for us?
I do.
Okay. And I don't believe there's anything for exec.
Final Cracker Barrel this Saturday.
Okay. Anything else coming before the commission? I need to entertain a motion adjourned. Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Danner to adjourn, all in favor?
You guys did. Aye.
Opposed?